Hey everyone, good morning. This is Dawn Whitaker, and welcome to another episode of Dreams Unveiled. Today I have a real privilege, and that is my sister-in-law Suzie is joining us today. She's joining us by audio only. You'll be able to hear her lovely voice, and she does have a great voice, I will say. And we are going to look at a dream that she had on May 3rd. And it was a really interesting one. This one was a bit of a stumper when I read through it, but that's okay because sometimes when we're looking at dreams, the process of investigating and figuring out their meaning is a process. And it's really kind of cool because I think we're going to see that what was going on in her life and the dream looked like there is absolutely no connection at all. And that's the word. If this was Pee Wee's Playhouse, the word today would be connection. So with all of that said, how are you, Suzie?
Good morning. I'm well, thank you. How are
It is
you?
great. And it's a gorgeous day. It is.
It is beautiful. Yes.
I will get out on a bike ride today and I will be out in the sun.
Good.
So very happy about that.
Good.
I'm going to start and have Suzie share her dream.
Okay.
Actually,
So
two
this,
dreams,
oh,
but
sorry.
yeah.
You want me to go ahead?
Yes, please.
Okay. I this happened. I went to bed Friday night, probably about 10:30, and went to sleep. I had something that was going on the next day, so I had to get up early at 6:30. So I started having this dream. So in the dream, I was in my house, which was actually, it wasn't, I knew it was my house, but it was my best friend from high school. It was her house after she got married. Um, and I was only in the living room. So that's the only part of the house I really saw in the dream, but I knew it was her, that living room. The only other difference was, which you'll hear later in the dream, the garage was on the wrong side of the house in the dream. So in the dream, I'm sitting on the couch, I'm watching TV, and I know that my husband, my brother, and my son are there. They're not on the couch with me, but I know they're there in the living room somewhere, and an unknown man. The movie I was watching was about a guy and a girl. They were bicycle racing. He wanted her to win, but he ended up winning. Um, the only connection I have for that was before I went to bed, we had watched this Eurovision movie with Will Ferrell, and there was a lot of parallels to that when I was watching the movie in my dream. Except in the movie, it's about singing. It's a singing competition, and in the dream, it was bicycle racing. So the movie ended, and I turned off the TV. So my husband, my brother, and my son then left to go to the store. And the other thing is, I don't remember seeing my brother, but again, I knew he was there. My husband and son, I feel like I saw them on like the periphery or something. But anyways, so they're gone now. They're not in the house anymore. And then the unknown man was still there, and he was joined by a man that was the devil. It was Satan. I just knew that. The devil immediately possessed the unknown man, and whatever he did, he like looked at him, and then the unknown man, it was almost like the cartoon eyes where they're like red and crazy looking and like in a trance. So that's how I knew that he had possessed him. So I knew something was wrong or bad, and I wanted my husband to come back home. And at that point, I felt like it was taking longer than it should. So I tried to call him on our house phone. And on my phone, there's a couple of numbers I have, like numbers speed dialed in. And so my husband's is number two. So I hit the number two to try to dial him. But when I hit the two, a different number popped up. It wasn't my husband's. So then I had to manually dial, but I dialed my son's phone number, and my husband answered the phone and said, we're going to be home. And I said, like really quietly, I said, there's someone here. And he didn't really respond. So then I said, also really quietly, I said, I'm scared. I then asked when he'd be home, and he said they're on their way. I asked him where he'd been for so long, and he wouldn't answer me, and he hung up. So at this point now, I'm still this devil's here and the unknown guy. So I'm trying to act normal in front of him. Like I didn't want him to really notice me because I felt like I really hadn't been noticed yet. So I planned to go to bed. So I turned off my iPad, which is strange because I'd already turned off the TV later or earlier in the dream. But I turned off my iPad and then I unplugged the Christmas tree lights, and the cords were all tangled up. I remember seeing all the cords all tangled up. And it wasn't Christmas time to my other than unplugging the lights. So now the scene switches, like it immediately switches, and I'm in the back seat of a car with the bad man driving, or the devil, and the possessed man was in the front seat, and we're in the driveway. And then my husband, son, and brother come back home with two vehicles. One of the vehicles pulled into the garage, and the other one pulled up to the garage. My son came over to the car where I was in the back seat and asked me where I was going. He came up to the window, but the man wouldn't let me roll down the window to talk to him. So I was trying to talk to him, but I couldn't talk to him. My son's kept changing between being himself and being my brother. Um, then the man drove off, and I felt this sense of doom, and I was never going to see anyone again because Satan was taking me somewhere bad. And then at that point I switched. I'm no longer in the back seat. Now I'm in the front seat, front passenger seat. And I remember start praying. I don't remember if it was the Hail Mary or Our Father, but I was praying one of them, and then I wake up. So now I'm awake. It's about 2 a.m. because I looked at the clock to see what time it was. And I have to say it's about 2 a.m. because a funny thing about us is our our bedroom clock is 45 minutes fast. So you kind of have to calculate like what I remember it said 3 something, but I'm pretty sure that it was really 2 something. But anyways, I was laying there thinking, wow, that was a really weird dream. I think Dawn would really enjoy interpreting that. So I made myself go through every step of the dream to remember it because I know myself. I have 2 to 6 or more dreams a night. I just do because every time I wake up, like to go to the bathroom or something, I go back to sleep. I start dreaming another dream. Maybe not right immediately, but you know. So, anyways, I was too tired to like actually get up and write it. So I just kept. I went step by step by step. So I go back to sleep, and then I dream that I'm in my mom's old bedroom. This will be our first mobile home when I was a kid in Hastings. And it's just Dawn, you, and I in the dream in the bedroom. And I tell you the whole dream, step by step by step, and you ask appropriate questions. And then that's it.
All right. Wow, that is so much. I will tell you when you were talking about, what you were watching on TV in the dream, and it was about bike racing.
Yes,
I question a little bit if that was some kind of a connection to me.
I agree.
I didn't, it's so funny when I read that at first that um I didn't make any
I
real.
right. I wrote racing in your copy, and so that might be why I. And then I realized I forgot to write the word bicycle racing because they were on bicycles.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, uh, we could. I don't know if it's really significant, but it may be that connection, which was, part of why it was so easy to transition into that other dream because there was so much going on. But I love this dream for a number of reasons. And I'm just going to just jump right in, and we're going to talk about the first part, and then we're going to talk about your the events in your waking life surrounding or that preceded this dream because I
Mhm.
think they're extremely relevant and it's kind of a mystery and we really need to look at how they all fit together. So first and foremost, being in a house typically represents your inner self. Uh, that is a pretty standard thing. It doesn't mean that it always has. All dream information has to be in context to what's going on, but that very likely is reasonable. It could also represent everything from, you know, your inner self, your emotions, how you're processing through things, all your thought life, and dreams with houses are typically related to things that you are dealing with mentally or emotionally or really looking at yourself introspectively. to have understanding. So the idea is that here you have a family, you, your brother, and your husband, and you're all pretty much, I mean, the initial thought is you're all sitting down and watching a movie, even though they're not on the couch with you. But
Hmm.
you know they're there. And we do this in dreams a lot, right? We know people,
Right.
we know that somebody that we don't recognize is somebody in particular. I mean, that's just how our brain does that. So you ultimately are watching a movie with your family. They're in the living room somewhere, hanging out in the corner, but we don't know. But you know that they're there in this room, and the focus is on this room. And there is a man that you have no idea who he is, just sitting there quietly. I don't know if he enjoyed the movie or not, but that's okay. So the first thing is that you're watching TV, you're watching a movie on TV. So typically, TV represents a sense of being disconnected from your surroundings. It's a way to kind of unplug from reality,
Hmm.
which is ironic in a dream if you think about it, but it does typically represent some kind of disconnection. So I think that is a very significant thing in this dream. You know, your family being there, quote, with air quotes, watching TV with you, but not really sitting there watching TV, but you recognize that they were there, also to me represents a bit of disconnection. The other thing that really grabbed my attention, and this is easy because I know your family, it's not like you only have these your son and your husband and your brother in the family. You know, you have a sister, you have a mom, you there are other people in your family. And I think that the reason that it was your brother, your husband, and your son is because I that there is an element of feeling unprotected or feeling protected. I think it's about protection. So I think that there's an element in this dream, you know, when we talk later about, you know, your son being at the window or any of that kind of thing, that it's really about feeling unprotected. So I think that may be a connection. And I think the new person in the dream, and this is really kind of an interesting thing, it either represents a part of you or a situation in your life that you're not entirely comfortable with, or that has some kind of negative connotation or something. It may not be anything you're immediately aware of. Sometimes we're planting seeds here and they germinate along the way. So far, how does that compute with you? Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
And,
yeah.
and and right now we don't even need to be concerned as to whether or not we have understanding of why the stream has manifested, because I think that I have a feeling with this stream, and like I said, with looking at what you cited as your week, that this is one of those things that's going to require a little searching for you.
Hmm. Okay.
So I'm gonna jump now. We're gonna take a break from the actual looking at the dream, and I really want to take a look at what's going on in your waking life. So share with me how your week had went prior to having the stream,
Well,
please.
it was actually a fairly normal week as far as, my normal day-to-day things. And then, so the a couple days preceding it, the Thursday, I had met with a friend. I used to work with her. I worked with her for over 20 years, nationwide, and we meet once a year. We try more often, but it's just so hard with everyone's lives. So we met for lunch, and we visited probably at least 3 hours, and we had a really nice visit. We catch up. Her son's getting married. Her mother-in-law had just passed. So we talked, in detail about those items in particular, and things going on, in my life with my son, working he's a teacher, etc. So we just had a really, really nice visit. And it's always hard to say goodbye because we still, probably could have talked 3 more hours. um, so that was really nice. And then Friday, I had my normal routine in the morning, just regular little things I do. And then I went to visit a friend. She was for my very first job. My very first job was for the United States Department of Agriculture Farmers Home Administration. That was my very first job. I did word processing, and I worked with her there. And I worked there 3 years, but we became, very good friends. And she lives on the south side of Syracuse. I had last seen her, she had lost her husband, and I had seen her at the funeral. And her and I we've never gotten together other than she came to my wedding. We've never gotten together. Oh, I take that back. When Nicholas was little, I just remembered, we visited her once when he was little, the whole family, because she has 2 girls. And but anyways, we keep in touch mainly by phone. I always send her cards, and but we keep in touch by phone. So I kept meaning that it was important to go visit her. So I went to visit her Friday, and we visited again. It was like another nice 3-hour visit. I got there about 1, and I stayed till 4. We just had a really nice visit. And obviously we talked about, her husband passing, all the things that she's dealing with related to that and stuff, and just filled each other in on our lives. Then I came home. We had Arby's. We Friday nights are fast food nights for us, and it was Arby's night. So we had Arby's for dinner. And then my son and my husband doesn't watch much TV with us, only because as soon as he sits in his recliner, he just falls asleep, and it's just something that happens to him. So he pretty much doesn't really watch much TV with us. So my son and I watched the Eurovision movie with Will Ferrell. And then there's a comedy, a half-hour comedy we watched, which called Papa's House. And at that point, my husband had come in the house, and he watched the half-hour comedy with us because we were all kind of laughing. And it's a silly show, but it's cute. And then, as I said, I went to bed about 10:30 because I had to get up early for a baby shower. It was my stepsister's son, well, her daughter-in-law, a baby shower, and I was going to be driving to Caledonia, and I was picking up my stepsister's aunt in Cicero, and then going to be driving to Caledonia. So I was looking forward to that because I always enjoy spending time with her aunt. I've gone to a couple weddings, taken her to a couple weddings. My stepsister's, she has 2 sons. In the last 2 years, one got married, then the other one got married. And now the first one that got married is having a baby. So anyways, I've gotten to know her aunt. And so I was looking forward to that. So that's really what proceeded.
So that sounds like a pretty good week.
It really was.
And I do want to ask for the friend that whose husband passed last year, and you said you went to go see her one time other than the funeral of her husband last year, but you went to go see her when Nicholas was young. So that's what, 25 years ago or
Yeah, yes, maybe even 26 years. He was like maybe 3, so that'd be 27 years, 28 years ago. Yeah.
so I'm interested to know what prompted this visit.
I've been wanting to visit her. I've been wanting to, and then knowing that she lost her husband, I just felt like it was really important because I have such a connection with her. You know, I will step back. I didn't visit her, but I don't know how many years ago. I'd have to look on my calendar. Her daughter got married, and we were invited to the wedding, and I did go to that wedding.
Well, I think that this theme of connection overall in your life, you just may be at a point where, you know, that this is significant to you. And I think of following these visits, and especially because, we're in central New York, we had a pretty rough winter. It's really hard connecting to people sometimes in our winter when we're snowed in. So, it may be even that may be part of why this is coming now, because you may be being more thoughtful about it. That, it's been on your heart to visit her. You want to start visiting her especially after her husband passed. So I think that may be just a Latin or a secondary thing going on in the dream about this need to connect to people. I also have one other question. Uh, you're retired, right, from
I'm
work?
semi-retired. I work 1 day a week for like an hour,
Okay. So, and how long have you been in that position? Semi-retired.
a couple years.
Okay. So all of this may be part of it. And I'm just actually asking this because when you really go through and try and really connect all of these dots and look at what the stream is really bringing to you, it's important to have as much information as you can to work with. So let's get back to the dream before
Okay.
I forget what the dream's about. No, but I think the idea of connection in your week was a significant theme in your week,
Okay.
and the need for it, the joy in it, all of it, I think, is connection. So this dream's about not feeling connected. And it could be not feeling connected in your day to day. It could be not feeling connected enough. It could be recognizing that you need to be connected more with people, especially now that, I know we can always say you have more time, but isn't it true? It just gets filled up. And
That is correct.
yeah, that's a myth, people. It's a myth. Trust me. Um, so here you are, you know, in this room, the living room. And living room, let's think about that. Comfort. That is the connection room inside a house. It's either a living room or a kitchen. The
Right.
idea that you're watching TV and your family's there and not there really shows a lack of connection, or even maybe even some desire to not be connected. But I don't think it's that because of everything that has gone on and where this is going. So it just show that there's like a superficial connection almost, but not the deep connection that you're seeking, which I
Mhm.
think that these visits provided for you.
Yes.
I
They
think
were.
in your day to day, you have a busy family. Everybody's working and you
Hmm.
know, so sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's okay.
So I think that there is all of that, and then there's this unknown man who could be a situation, could represent a part of yourself in your house that, is uh, making you feel a bit unsafe. You don't know what his purpose is there. You don't know who he is. He's unidentified, but he is in your personal space because you created a personal space in this house. And then what happens is the movie ends. The movie ends, you turn the TV off, and your family goes to the store.
Yes.
So Mark and Tim and Nicholas all get in their vehicle, one vehicle,
I
and
don't know. I don't know because
oh,
they came back with two. So
okay. So I didn't. So when okay, so I didn't make that connection. I knew they came back with two. Um,
I never saw them leave. I just knew they left to the store.
okay, but in the dream, you were surprised they came back with two vehicles.
No,
Okay, all right. So maybe in your waking life, you thought that was kind of weird if they all went to the store together because you definitely that was a point. So that's all. I was just trying to determine if that
it
was.
was a point because it was part of the dream. I mean, yeah, I don't.
I got you. So so the idea that they left, and especially because Satan now is sitting in your living room with this unknown person,
Just
really.
correct. The unknown man, I did see him and I did see the devil. I specifically saw them. They were never sitting, they were both standing.
Oh, they were both. So he just was just hovering the unknown man. Okay,
Correct.
so that is. I thought he was kicking back on the couch.
No, he was always just standing. And then when the devil came, he stood next to him, looked at him, did the possession thing, and then he was always just standing. In fact, the only time I guess he was sitting was when he was in the front seat of the car. Um,
Okay, so you know what that tells me though? That really tells me that something in you that
okay.
maybe is not reconciled or is maybe is something you need to explore and really take a look at. And it may be about and I'm sure, even without going any further, I'm sure it's about connection with all the important people in your life and how you're connecting. And I think it's growing to be like um, a need for a deepened connection, that you're really seeking out deeper connection. And so as far as the uh, everybody leaving you, that really is. I don't think in the case of the stream it's abandonment, but I really think earlier I had suggested that feeling of or that unprotectedness. And I really do think that you're now in a state of not having protection and not being or feeling safe, even though you're not running away. So, but that's all right because the dream is portraying this for a particular reason. And if we could just run away from our thoughts, that would be awesome. Doesn't quite work that way.
No.
So, so Satan is now not even paying attention to you,
Right.
but possesses this this part of you, this whatever, whether it's related to a situation or whatever it is, this unknown man. And um, and by possessing it, basically you recognized that the unknown man was under the control of Satan.
Correct.
And that's it for right there. So your thought at this point is I need to escape the situation. I'm gonna go to bed. I'm tired. It's done.
Well, no, I called
Oh
Tim
yes,
first.
yeah, I forgot that part. Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm
That's
doing
okay.
so. Yes, and that's relevant. I don't want to forget that part. So went to go call Tim, and you got another number on your when you were trying to speed dial Tim.
Right.
He's pre-programmed. So then you went to the pre-programmed number two for Nicholas and got Tim.
No, no. I went to the pre-program number 2, and when the number popped up, it was not Tim's number. So then I had to manually dial Nicholas's
Okay.
number.
All right. Yeah, sorry about that.
That's
So,
okay.
um,
And then Tim answered. So I was dialing, I physically dialed, 315, whatever the whole number. And then Tim answered. My husband answered.
and that's I'm going to come back to that because I recognize something very important in that. But Tim answered when you dialed Nicholas's phone, but when you tried to dial the pre-program number for Tim's phone, you had a wrong number entirely,
Correct.
which shows to me some communication nuances or issues just in general. And once again, it kind of represents that whole lack of connection thing. And it doesn't mean that anything's wrong. I think it is really you seeking this deep connection. I mean, you spent hours with friends this week, really sharing. By your own admission, you could have spent hours more.
True.
So I think that there's some real relevance there. And you called Nicholas's number next, and Tim answered, I'm going to hold off and talk about that when Nicholas is at the car. So I'm not like getting way ahead of myself because I think that's relevant. So you're talking to Tim now and you're letting him know you're scared. When are you coming home? Um, you were trying to be quiet, so the devil wasn't hearing you. You're really being thoughtful, but you recognize you have no protection from this situation.
Right.
And Tim's response to you was that they were on their way home, but when you tried to ask why they were taking so long, he did not answer and he hung up.
Correct.
So once again, there's that whole, it's just that communication-y kind of, I'm making up words now, uh, that communication thing, that disconnection piece. And that, and it's really interesting because even calling Nicholas, um, you got an answer but it was Tim. And I think the interplay between Tim and Nicholas and Mark is actually very relevant to the roles that they played in this dream.
Mhm.
So at that point, you're cashing in for the day. You turn the iPad off,
Yep.
and then I love the Christmas lights. The Christmas lights, it was just your mind's way of showing us something, even though it wasn't Christmas and it was a weird event to happen in here. So the Christmas lights were a tangled mess, but you
Mhm.
had to unplug them.
Correct.
So first of all, the idea that they were Christmas lights, you knew they were Christmas lights, is relevant because what is Christmas? Christmas is all about family and connection.
Hmm.
So once again, you know, it, I think that is really a big thing, but the lights are all tangled. In other words, there's chaos. There's um, it's a lack of efficiency, chaos, anything, you know, that you could think about, entanglement, all of it. It just seems like that, and this is all happening in your space. This is in your inner self, inner space, your comfort place that you've established in the dream, which is a house that belonged to best friend after high school. So I think all of that is really quite significant. And then you just flashed. You didn't go to bed or anything. You just flashed. Now you are sitting in a car in your driveway. The
Correct.
devil's driving, and the unknown person is sitting next to him in the passenger seat, and you're in the.
Correct.
So Nicholas comes to you. Your the guys pull in two
Right.
separate vehicles.
Yes. One goes in the garage and one parks outside the garage.
So the idea that there is a garage on this house, and there were two cars, and one of the cars went in the garage, and the other car stayed in the driveway. Also, duly noted in the beginning, you said the garage was on the other side of the house in the dream than it is actually in the waking world.
Right.
So, what are some things that a garage can mean? And the garage is an attached garage, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that means there's an entrance into the house.
That's correct.
All right. So if we look at what could a garage mean in a dream? If a house is your inner self, the garage is kind of that protection, that 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 gateway into that inner self. It could represent safety, it could represent security, anything like that. So uh, I think from the standpoint of protection and connection, that the garage stood out in two separate areas of this dream because and I think it's showing maybe that you have some things to reconcile or you know or to really do some searching for the idea that it's on the other side could mean that things are less chaotic and things are really in a very orderly, protected, secure place, or it could be the opposite of that. Really depends on how you really perceived your life before that. And keep in mind, let's try and stay with this thought of connection, even though, if you have other ideas, your ideas are more important than my ideas. I just want to make that clear. So the other thing is only one. So now there's two cars. This is the three males that are participating in this dream. One of the cars went in to the garage and one of the cars stayed in the driveway.
Correct.
So it does show a bit of a dichotomy or something that you're having a hard time reconciling. That is part of this security. connection kind of thing. And I think this really does have more to do with that security, that gateway. There are things in your thought life. I mean, pay attention to some things that you're having a hard time reconciling or delving deeper with or needing to address. So I think that's really relevant. I think the men in the dreams really are the emphasis on that protection. Out of three people that you're connected to, they would probably be, from the dream standpoint, the connection. And I think, your brother in particular, I mean, he's part of your original family, your family of origin, but now you have a nuclear family of you and Tim and Nicholas, um, that he also represents the past. So I think this is really a kind of a look at your life, like where the dream is doing an evaluation. So he would be there, before Tim was in this role kind of thing, even though they're
Sure.
all active. So
Right.
I think this is also relevant. Why? Because uh, why I think they're all in one role in the dream is because other than the communication symbolism with the phone, you dialed Nicholas and got Tim. Nicholas now is at the car window. You're in the back seat, and he is changing. 1 minute he's Nicholas, then he's changing to Mark, then he's Nicholas, and then he's Mark. So I think that really is showing that this is kind of a very generalized uh, concept that who they symbolize to you.
Okay.
So Nicholas is trying to talk to you through the window,
Yep.
and the devil's not having it. He's not rolling down the window. You can't roll down the window.
Right.
You're trapped in this car.
Right.
And so he just backs out and takes off.
Yeah, we drive forward and yeah,
Wait, okay. So
we
you're
drive forward. We
all
were
right,
facing out. We were facing to go forward.
okay.
The other one had pulled in, so they would have been the opposite direction of us.
All right. All right. Well, that's very helpful because I think that's very helpful with the car thing. Thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome.
And that was just an assumption I made. That was nothing had nothing to do with what you said. That's just how my mind saw
Uh,
it.
yeah, no, we were facing to go out of the driveway.
Probably because I can't back in anywhere. So whatever. So now you're driving down the road. Well, you're riding as a passenger in the back seat
Yes.
up front, and so is the unknown man. Is there any conversation?
No, no, it's a very short moment. It's a very short moment. I'm immediately, as soon as we start driving off down the road, I immediately felt the doom. I was never going to see any of those people again. I was never going to see anyone again. And then I was suddenly in the front seat. The unknown man is gone, and I started to pray, and I woke up.
Okay. So the idea that first of all you're moving forward, that even though you're trapped, you're still moving forward,
Okay.
which definitely does not show you feel doom. You have great fear. You feel, actually, let me ask you, were you very fearful? You're feeling like doom, this is the end, but that doesn't mean in a dream that you're fearful. So what were your feelings?
I was almost like resignation though. Like I knew like that was it. That's that's it.
So so I think, the idea that I think that we're definitely when we're talking about doom, we're talking about death.
Yes.
And I think that, you're going forward just goes to show in this, you're resigned because there's not a thing you could do about it. Death is an inevitability.
Hmm.
You know, we don't want to be going with the devil,
Right.
yeah,
That's
that part. That would be that's the part, that's the real problem there. But I think with everything that we're, how in the context that we're looking at this dream, as far as making connections, deeper connections, strengthening correction connections, all of that, the probably, the devil would be more. of a brain connection to all of these thoughts and premises and ideas. I mean, if an angel was coming to take you, you'd be like, yeah, let's just go.
Right. It's true.
So I do think that what that is symbolic for is that you have limited time with all of these people, right? Your friend, you don't see these people very often.
Right.
And after the loss of her husband, I think it made you really realize I need to spend more time with this person.
Yes.
So you may be examining it not that, and it's not that we're old, or anything like that, but we're older. We're definitely getting older.
Oh, sure.
Death is getting closer to us, however we want to look at it. And I think as we do get older, it changes our thoughts about things. At the end of 2020, I lost a very, very dear friend to my spiritual mother, somebody I cared about so deeply. I lost her during COVID, and it was really devastating to me. But the part that was very devastating to me is how little time I was making for her. I was so busy with things, and I really had to think about this. God is about love, and God is about he's relational. That life is about relationship,
Yes.
not so much of everything we have to do. And it really changed my life when I started to realize I need to get down to Ohio and see my family more often. I need to spend time with some of my friends that are really aged and really enjoy listening to them and having that opportunity. It really changed all of my thoughts about connecting and not taking some of my connections that I needed to deepen for granted, like with my husband who's on the road, and we've gotten very comfortable with him on the road and me doing life here. And the fact is, I think this may be an examination of all of that for you, because in the dream, you're moving toward death, but you
Right.
weren't there. You're still going forward. Life's still going on.
Yes.
I love that the prayer woke you up, which would
Yes.
actually make sense in context of your driver. And the
Right.
idea that you ended up in the front seat and that the unknown man was gone
Yeah.
really goes to show that this is your thought life, your beliefs, your values that are being scrutinized and looked at in the stream.
hmm Makes sense. Yes.
So that I think is the dream. Do you have anything? Well, we'll get to dream number two in a minute. And
Right.
but anything about the actual in the dream that you can think might be.
No, other than just as far as to make a couple of more connections, the house I was in, the age that I would have been then when I was visiting my friend was the age I was when I first started working with the lady um, saw Friday. I was like 19, 20 when I was working with her, and I am 61 now. So that's a lot of years later. But we've been, friends that whole time. We just had connected. But anyways, my point is the age I was when I used to visit my friend. So maybe that's the significance of why I was in her house or her living room.
Yeah, that's a really good connection to make. Look at I can't even talk about connection without using the word connection. And I think the devil doesn't represent in this actual, like evil things, like you're just in this great place of sin and need to repent. I don't think it's anything like that at all. I think it is just the inevitability of death and the taking for granted and the regret and all of those kind of things that are apparent. I mean, you just met with somebody who lost her husband,
hmm
who you are close to, but you don't spend a lot of time with. And so I do. I think this is a season of relationship building for you
Okay. Yeah.
and relationship examination. I love that. I love that because and just for everybody watching, when I read this dream, and believe me, I got Suzie gets the award for the greatest detailed account of a dream. That was pretty awesome. Um, but when I looked at it, and then I looked at the section she wrote about what was going on during the uh, her week, I really could not make any connection in that. So then what happened, and this is great. She woke up and she was exhausted. You know, sometimes dreams take some stuff out of you, and so she is going through a whole process, step by step, bit by bit, piece by piece, to remember and capture this dream so she can write it down in the morning. So I think that was pretty incredible. And I think that was the forerunner for the second dream. Although I think, in the dream, and I don't know if this is a little bit of a lucid piece or whatever, that I was incorporated in that ever so slightly in the movie part. The second dream, you were very thoughtful about, and even in your waking time, I need to share this dream with Dawn. So I think that's pretty cool. But there we are in another house, in another room. And this is
Correct.
grew up in your mother's bedroom.
Yes.
Were we just sitting on the bed, just casually?
I feel like you were standing and I was sitting. If I'm, it's hard to, to go back to that moment, but I mean, it was just you and I, and, it was from when I was a child, it was a childhood home. Yeah. And it was just you and I told you the whole dream and you were asking me questions like this. And yeah,
So, and the interesting thing is, me being there is definitely me doing the dream interpretation, or the counselor role that I'm in, or else I'd probably be sitting on the bed with you. So the fact that I was standing and you were probably sitting, even though we don't know that positively, but in the event that's how it was, really meant you were seeking my counsel on the stream.
yeah, yeah.
Is it?
When I knew that I really wanted to share it with you because it was so. I mean, my dreams are always like this, but that I remembered it so well when I first woke up was important to me to say, like, okay, this is one I could share with Dawn, because I have so many dreams all the time. I've Ever since you started doing your podcast, I've been like, oh, it'd be fun to share one with you, but I just don't remember, because I have so many, I don't remember enough of them to do this. And so this was actually extra important to me. So I feel like, and we did, when I had the second dream, I went through that whole, step by step by step with you. I went and I can really remember doing that with you. So that by the time I actually woke up at 6:30, I was able to write it all down. And I just scribbled it all on paper. I kept the notes of scribbling it on paper so that I could refer to it if I needed to.
Well, I think that's really awesome. And one of the probably final points I want to make on this is that, research shows that dreams enhance our memory, especially our emotional memory. And- so I think the idea that you had that dream and went through the step by step in the dream is really what sealed the deal. And it really, you weren't going to forget it at that point. That dream actually served to really help you remember. Without that dream, if you would have just went through the waking time, you probably would have captured most of it. But this dream really ensured that you really vividly captured pretty much all of the dream.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yes.
think it's fantastic.
Thank you. There was one other thing I wanted to note, because we had talked about this another time, but while I was dreaming, I don't know so much about the one with you and I, but the first dream, sometimes I was me, myself in me, and sometimes I was watching the dream unfold.
Yes. So just for everybody else, this was Susie and I go to breakfast once a month, and this was a conversation at one of our breakfasts. Are you watching yourself in your dreams, or are you in your dream? And I thought, huh, I never thought of it, but when I really now think about it, I'm clearly, from what seems to most of the time, I'm watching myself, but sometimes I know I'm interacting from within. But a lot of times when I'm seeing a dream, I'm seeing myself in other people. It's a very strong perspective, or I'm looking and going, I know that's me, but that doesn't look like me. Which, if I was in me, then I wouldn't be able to see that third person view. I actually will look at this. I never really gave it any thought until you brought that up. And I'm going to ask everybody that's watching if you've had experiences where you're third person or first person as far as the point of view in the dream, drop a comment. That's really interesting to me. And I think it's just how our brain is making sure it's giving us the information and the uh and processing through it. But I find that to be very interesting. So I'm glad, thank you for sharing that because Susie's right that that does happen probably with most of us. I just never paid any attention. I just took for granted that that was a thing. Oh. That's pretty cool. Let's see what we find out.
Yes, I'm curious to hear what other people might say about that.
Me too. And I'll look that up because and you know what? Maybe next time we do a Q&A, that'll definitely be a question.
Yes. Yes, because I can vividly remember other dreams that I've had where I know I was watching, like you said, because the person that I was absolutely was not, looked nothing like me. Like I've had some action adventure dreams and doing things like running and jumping and like action adventure, and I knew that wasn't me. I mean, as far as, so I had to have been watching it because, anyways.
Oh, that's cool. Maybe that was your stunt double, your dream stunt double.
Exactly, maybe.
All right. Well, listen, I first of all thank everybody for watching and thank you, Susie. This was a really great dream, and it really goes to show the depth that our dreams really are in helping us along our journey through life because there is so much in this dream that this was almost a stumper for me trying to make all of those connections. But the connections ended up being quite apparent. So I thank you, Susie. You were a great guest. And thank you, everybody, for watching. I
You're
hope you
welcome.
have a great day and sweet dreams.